Did you guys hear the big news? Wood has been dropped from Nintendo, and the internet is just on fire about this situation. And it's obviously a very interesting situation because Wood has been working with Nintendo for quite a while now. I, of course, talk to Wood on a daily basis. He is a very good friend of mine, and he was actually thinking about making a video before actually making the video, talking about his relationship with Nintendo ending. And I said, yeah, you know, that's a great idea because it really sort of gives a different insight that I think a lot of people don't really realize what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to video game related channels and even video game related websites on the internet, because a lot of people seem to have a lot of misconceptions and a lot of misinformation when it comes to stuff like that. There are still people out there that are very confused about why everyone releases a video at the same time on a certain video game. They think it's a conspiracy theory or something, but in actuality it's something called an embargo, where a company will say you cannot talk about this game or review this game until this set date and this set time. And that's sort of why these reviews tend to go up at exactly the same time. So today I basically just want to have a very casual style video, talk about what Wood is going through, and then talk about my personal relationships with Nintendo, because I used to run a big Nintendo website and I worked directly with Nintendo during that time frame. And then when I started RGT85, I no longer worked with Nintendo. So I want to talk about my experiences working with Nintendo, talk about the positive things, and then talk about why I decided to just go independent on this channel, even though a lot of people think that I'm not independent on this channel. I am. So really, let's get into this situation as a whole. In case you haven't heard, even though the video has over 1 million views right now, shout outs to Wood, great job with that. But Wood and Nintendo basically ended their relationship as far as working together on things. And Nintendo has had a long-standing relationship with Wood, like they have a lot of content creators. But like I said, RGT85 has never worked directly with Nintendo on anything. I have never gotten a Nintendo review copy for this channel. Everything that I do that's Nintendo related comes out of my pocket. I purchase these games personally and then I review them on my own time. And of course I have worked with a lot of other companies when it comes to things like that. You know, I've done things with Sega, I've done things with Evercade, you know, giving you guys exclusive information and exclusive reveals with those companies. But Nintendo is a very different sort of company, whereas all the other companies out there, you pretty much just work on an individual basis. You work on a per diem sort of thing where it's like you do this one thing for us and then that's it, and then we'll work with you together in the future. Nintendo has what is called the Nintendo Ambassadors program, and essentially what that is a special program for content creators and certain websites to get involved into things with Nintendo. And that way is how you get things like early review copies of games to check out, do things like giveaways and whatnot, and do special Nintendo events. And RGT85 has never done anything with Nintendo on that stand front because that's like a special program, and I never applied for that program because I really never felt the need to. But like I said, I used to run NintendoEnthusiast.com. I was the editor-in-chief over there, and I basically worked my way up from just a lowly news person up until I became editor-in-chief there. So when I worked with Nintendo Enthusiasts, obviously I worked a lot with Nintendo because we were they still are a pretty big Nintendo related website. Now, while I did have a personal working relationship with Nintendo during that time with Nintendo Enthusiasts, it's not quite cut as dry as a lot of other companies are out there, because of course you have things like different regions. Now, the Nintendo Enthusiast website was actually based out of Canada, meaning that they had a personal relationship with Nintendo of Canada, whereas I of course lived in the United States along with a lot of other writers for that website. And the way things would work is you wouldn't necessarily work directly with Nintendo, you would work through a third-party company called Golan, which would basically sort of tell you guys what you were going to be doing as far as upcoming Nintendo related products. Nintendo didn't send you the product directly, you would get the product through Golan, as they are pretty much the middleman for this sort of thing. So working with Nintendo back then, it was very, very different. This was back in like 2015, 2016 when I was doing that. And basically the way it would work is sometimes you would get emails telling you what sort of stuff was coming in, and then sometimes you wouldn't. I would literally come home from my day job sometimes and have a package from Golan at the house with the latest, you know, Nintendo Wii U game or something like that, or a new 3DS release, because at that time they were sort of transitioning from the physical goods into the digital distribution and just giving people review copies. But I remember coming home and getting things like Amiibo Festival on the Wii U, and I was like, oh god, I gotta review this now. So a lot of times I wouldn't even get like a heads up that something was coming in. Sometimes they would correspond through email when things would have to be additionally given, but a lot of times times there would just be like a letter inside of the box telling me, you know, what this was, when the embargo for it was. Of course, embargo, we learned about what that was earlier, when you could first talk about it, and things of that nature. And honestly, it worked pretty well. You know, we were obviously very happy with the relationship that we had, but then something sort of just went sort of weird, where there was a switch. There was, no pun intended, there was a switch in how Nintendo was handling things through GoLin, to where it was just pretty much automatic that the games would come in, to it changed to where you had to start requesting things. And that's where things got a little bit more interesting, because a lot of times what happens at these third-party companies that are handling these claims are basically, people are, you know, it's a constantly revolving door. I can't tell you how many different people I worked with at GoLin through corresponding with emails in those few months that I was still editor-in-chief when they switched over to a different sort of thing. Like I said, it went from pretty much getting the latest Nintendo releases sent to me to having to request the latest Nintendo releases. And much like the situation that Wood is currently dealing with, they weren't very clear on this situation. It pretty much just came down to the fact that I had to actually reach out to them and be like, hey, you know, we didn't get this game, you know, not a huge deal or anything, but I'm just wondering, you know, is there something we did wrong on our end? Is there something we need to be working on? That, you know, is there something you guys are upset about? And Nintendo never really gave us an answer on that. It was pretty much, no, something has just changed. So the communication that you see between Nintendo and content creators, whether they are websites or YouTubers or Twitch streamers or anything, can be very, very lacking. And then of course I ended up leaving Nintendo Enthusiast once RGT85 started, you know, really taking off, and I was just sort of doing my own thing. You know, we came to a very amicable split and all that. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys over there. Make sure you guys check them out. Very good people over there. But it was definitely a very interesting time for me, because I had to decide whether or not I wanted to be a part of the Nintendo Ambassadors program on my individual channel on RGT85. And I honestly just decided no. It just didn't feel like something I really needed to do. I prefer, when, you know, it comes to review copies, I prefer to just do it on an individual basis. I prefer to just reach out to a company and attempt to get a review copy. And if I could get a review copy, great. If not, you know, it's not the end of the world. If it's a game that I'm really interested in checking out, I'm really interested in playing, I will go out of my way to purchase this game and then give you guys my honest thoughts and impressions on it. So really at the time when RGT85 was, you know, picking up steam and starting to become, you know, its own channel and its own identity, it probably would have made some sort of sense for me to join the Nintendo Ambassadors program, but I just never felt compelled to do it, just because I knew how it sort of worked out. It wasn't necessarily a guarantee of you being able to get stuff. There was a lot of sort of red tape that went along with it as well, so you never really knew what to expect when it came to getting stuff directly from Nintendo, and that sort of messes up with your planning of stuff as well. That sort of messes up, you know, how am I going to cover this game? Do I need to wait and purchase it on my own? Am I going to get a review copy of it? You know, obviously you'll have to reschedule stuff that's on your channel as well. So just for me personally, it didn't make much sense for me to apply to the Nintendo Ambassadors program. There's also some other stuff that goes along with it as well. And I'm not saying it's a bad program or anything like that. I think it is a great program. But the one thing that I think a lot of people need to take away from this is a lot of your favorite Nintendo related YouTubers or multi-platform channels or whatever, they're not necessarily in that program. Nintendo themselves and GoLin themselves actually like to do sort of, you know, more interesting channels. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of channels that are very, very small that are a part of the Nintendo Ambassadors program and get all this sort of cool stuff because they sort of bring a different dynamic into things. Nintendo themselves doesn't necessarily seem to care, seem to want to cater to the YouTubers that have the biggest audience out there, the YouTubers that, you know, have 1 million plus subscribers that are out there, you know, reaching everyone. Nintendo works with a lot of smaller channels, even like sub 10,000 subscriber channels, which of course 10,000 subscribers is a lot, but when you're comparing it to other people talking about Nintendo stuff, you know, when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of subscribers versus 10,000 subscribers, you would think Nintendo would want to work with the bigger channels, but they just sort of move to the beat of their own drum. And, you know, them ending their partnership with Wood, I don't think personally had anything to do with him ragging on games or anything like that. Some people seem to think that that was the situation. You know, he talked negatively about games. Look, if that was the case, Nintendo enthusiasts would have never gotten any review copies for Nintendo games, because we used to review games. If they sucked, they sucked. Games like Amiibo Festival, we absolutely ripped them apart on the website, but Nintendo continually still worked with us at that point in time. A lot of people think it could have been for the fact that he used a CMU and he basically did that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild hack video. I mean, maybe maybe, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that really played a role in it. I think that they just went in a different direction, because I have seen them and I personally experienced Nintendo going in a different direction when it comes to people that make content related on their video games. You got to remember, Nintendo isn't like a lot of these other companies. Up until a few years ago, like what, 2 years ago, you couldn't even use Nintendo related trailers or Nintendo related music in your YouTube video. If you were reviewing a Nintendo game, you actually had to chop down that footage to 10 seconds or less, or use like a sort of, you know, like a little pigeon box sort of view on it in order to sort of circumvent Nintendo copyright claiming your video. So Nintendo is a very, very different company. And honestly, that's why I chose at that time not to work with Nintendo. And that's why still to this day, I don't work with Nintendo on anything. Any Nintendo related content on this channel comes out of my own pocket, because I think it just works. It's what I've been doing for a while, and it definitely is a shame that Wood is no longer a part of the program or anything like that. But really, I feel like there's just a lot of misconceptions about how video game reviews work in general. And of course, because of Wood's situation becoming very popular, hitting the trending page on YouTube, like, shout outs, dude. That's so crazy. Maybe one day I'll get on trending on YouTube. But obviously this has become a very big situation. I made this video with Wood's blessing, of course. I talked to him before making it, and he thought it was a good idea because, like I said, I sort of have a different perspective. I've worked with the website portion of Nintendo, and now, of course, we are seeing the YouTube side of Nintendo, and it's definitely something that is constantly changing, constantly evolving. I don't think there's any sort of bad blood between them or anything like that. It just, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I just wanted to give you guys my personal experiences of working with Nintendo, both on a website portion and, of course, how it works on the YouTube side of things as well. So just a little informative video. Obviously, it's a big topic right now, so why not put my 2 cents in the situation? But just let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments section down below, if you enjoyed this sort of look into the back end of video game reviews and how the video game industry works as a whole. And maybe I'll do some more videos like this, because obviously I have a lot of stories to tell when it comes to things like this, working on a website since, you know, I started writing back in 2012, you know, 8 years ago, and now, of course, doing YouTube. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff on here. So let me know if you enjoy this sort of relaxed discussion style video in the comments section down below. And as always, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.